Hi, welcome to my DeathsDoor companion video to the demo reel. And we are going to jump straight in by watching the clip and then break it down layer by layer. Alright, so first up we have our ambience layer. And it's some industry ambience and some desert. Here that fills it all in there. So ambience, super exciting. We're going to jump into the crow here. This is where stuff really gets busy. But let's look at the saber here. And I wanted to make sure that it was very electrical sounding. So it consists of 3 layers. We're going to try listening to them one at a time here. Listen to the hum. So this was a transformer hum that I then fade adjusted and then froze. And then high voltage sparks. You can really see my fades, but all together you get that. So if we listen to just the swords, so I made sure that they were pitch adjusted for each one. Feels like a different sword attack each time. But that is the sword attacks. Next up is the bow. We'll look down at the knock, release, and travel. So the knock is when the player says, I'm going to shoot, releases as the bow releases, and travel is the movement of the arrow. So here's the knock. Very quiet, very subtle. Kind of hear it farther down in the timeline. Becomes more apparent that, okay, this is happening. And that is an actual archery draw layered with mouth percussion to give it that pop sound. Okay, next up is our release. So that is also an archery sample combined with a computer mouse to give it some click. And then the bow moving, the low end thump, the desk drawer. And same thing, slightly pitched it a little bit to give it some more adjustments on that one. It's your release, and then the travel of the arrow. Conveniently the same archery whoosh. And then electrical, because it's a electrical bolt of arrowness. And here's a couple of them back to back. And there you have those. And let's listen to this section here. We have a big old draw that happens. It's like a charge attack. And I wanted to make sure there was a release sound as well. Vital, give me this layer. And then this one, pitched up, it's an electrical sound, and that sounds like this. And then the release texture is just lightning strike and pitched. So that gives you that long draw, which is here. And that wraps up the crow, which you'd think is just 2, like the sword and the bow. Well, what I ended up doing was I took all the impacts that happen to the castle are in the castle layer, which is much bigger. We're going to do the bow impacts. So every time something hits there, and that is, once again, more sparks. And more electricity. And you can hear them again here too. And you can hear the sparks are a little bit different. The pitch is a little bit adjusted for each and every one, just to keep it more realistic and interesting. Next up is the bell impact. So this is anytime that the castle gets smacked. And that's in any damage sense. If we listen to the first layer, it's just a donk. And then we have a kick for the thud. And then another bell to give it more grandioseness. It's a cathedral. I wanted it to be sound a little bit bigger. And that is all of them together. And there's a little bit of pitching around and adjustments to make them each different each time. The castle is an motorized thing. So I wanted to make sure that it had an engine. Okay, high end. Mids. Lows. And texture. We bring them all together. That gives you your engine sound. We're going to take a look at the punches. So this one is pretty detailed because I wanted to make sure I captured each section. So if we look at the cog rotate, so small, so little, but you'll notice this wrist piece rotates, which I thought was pretty important. And that's 2 wrists rotating. And that I used a clock. Next up is the arm movement. This is whenever the arm moves up and down. You'll see it here. Because it's like a castle stone texture, I wanted to make it sound like there was stone grating, which is a tombstone. Next up was the arm dragging on the dirt, which it took a lot of work, a lot of layers to get the way I needed it. Because there's some pitch adjustment. There's also Foley of dirt and gravel. Let's listen to them. So this is the entire thing. The scrape. Okay, so dragging on dirt. Let's look at the different layers. Awesome, some Foley in there. And it's all, but really, this was multiple layers and sounds to give me a scraping sound against rock. Okay, moving on to the impact. So you can see I've got 3 layers, and that's whenever the hand slams down. So a kick, piano pedal, which I thought was fun because it's like a cathedral, and an impact tail. So all together, you get this. Nice big thud. Let's look at the spin attack. So there's going to be gravel and dirt thrown. There's a rotary hammer in here. Let's listen to these guys. An engine noise. Give me that rotational vibe. Clicks. That kind of felt like the dirt rocks all flying. Robot engine. Because it's like winding up through. Rotary hammer as well because of the spin engine. And it's the lower end. And then this dirt. And that brings it all together. So let's do the jets. So when the castle takes off, which for me was figuring out I want it to be fiery, so we're going to use torch propane throwers. So the fire of the engine, and then another layer to help fill it out lower. The high-end travel. More like whiny, droney engine, high-end. Sample redux mids. And sample redux lows, whereas that high grit kind of gets masked by this higher one. Let's listen to that all here. And then it lands. Speaking of landing, let's get into that guy. Let's listen. So a big old thump, the kick there for that low mid-range impact. Big old boom. Gives you the body of it. And then the chains. Because I felt like there's chains in the castle, stuff's being rattled around, it impacts, there's some big movement happening. So if we listen to this, you get that full sound. That's the impact landing, rebel, punch. Last up is this laser attack. So if we listen to the whole thing, there's a lot of aspects to it, including the tracker, the wind-up, the fire, and the impact. And I wanted to make sure this ducked the laser tail to the impact. as well. So let's look at the charge. Nice big wind up. I used a lot of layers and a couple of old ideas, MIDI stuff that I had made in Vital and then frozen, like this guy. Or this one, for example. Just that low end pitch rise. That's your charge. And then we've got the tracker in here. Take a listen to that one, which was a fun high-end wobble I wanted to try and get in. And then we have the, oh look, I found you, or target acquired. And then some clock alarms to kind of tie that all together. Actually firing is a big old impact, electrical surge, kicks. What else? Hockey player impact in there as well. Vinyl grit, dirt, sand crashing, all in there to give it some body after the fact. And I also needed a dirt explosion. Let's turn that off. Because you need the effects of the dirt when it's been hit by a laser. So laser all in is this guy again. Alright, so that is the entire breakdown. We're at 160 tracks of layers into this. Super fun to make, but let's listen to it one more time. Awesome. Thanks for checking out my DeathsDoor companion video. Make sure you check out the rest of them as well. Cheers.